What's up, guys? It's Ray Reinhardt's Chaos Astrologer. I'm going to try my hardest to not ramble. It is the 30th of November, 2020. This is my general overview for both eclipses, lunar and solar. I just deleted like 5 minutes of rambling that was completely unnecessary. I apologize. The lunar eclipse that's happening today is conjunct my ascendant and Gemini rising people, and sometimes Gemini sun can never shut the fuck up. And that is totally apparent today. So we're gonna try to stay on task here. Sometimes when I get like this, I'll write like a huge novel of notes I need to do. I stuck to just a sticky note this time. So I'm gonna cover the lunar and the solar eclipse. I'm gonna do an overview of the social and mundane. I did a political themed one last week. I'm gonna steer clear of the political because I used an entire video to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the major signs or archetypes affected. I'm also going to highlight the nodes because it's important that this eclipse, solar and lunar, will be in the signs of the nodes, which will coincide with some people may not kind of piece these things together, but the Saturn-Pluto conjunction causing instability, dissolving, destruction, instability, coupled with ending 2020 with two eclipses in mutable signs, would cause more instability, more uncertainty, more plot twists, that sort of thing. So it's definitely a finale for 2020. Yeah, let me just go ahead and graph the charts and go into it. I'll do just like a general overview kind of thing, and whatever I guess comes to mind. Yeah. Okay, I don't even know how many takes I've done. The damn eclipse is just getting to my ascendant and all that. Anyway, so I made multiple charts for different localities because sometimes when you're looking at lunar eclipses, the moon can change to a different house. I did the West Coast, the East Coast of the United States, UK, London. I did Singapore, and I did Sydney, Australia. Just the generalization covers most of the bases. The only house change that happened with any of these localities was Singapore. Singapore will have the moon in Gemini in the 9th house. The rest of these charts will have it in the 8th house. So let's go ahead and cover the 8th house themes first. So the moon will be in the sign of Gemini at 9 degrees. And we have a couple different themes that go on with the 8th house. It has to do with collective finances, security. That could be social security, welfare. It could be general like psychological or emotional security, intimacy, secrets, disease, healthcare, collective resources again, and joint powers. So having these mutable eclipses happening towards the end of 2020, we reflect back on the year that has happened. We obviously had the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in the beginning of the year, which was the signature that was conjunct an eclipse last December, which triggered the pandemic that spread worldwide. The dissolving, the death, the instability, and the destruction that has resulted because of the Pluto-Saturn conjunction with that eclipse has made what we know as 2020. With us having the last two eclipses for 2020 being immutable, will just exacerbate the instability. When the moon is in Gemini, it's less emotional and more rational, or tries to be more logical. Unfortunately, Gemini, as much as they like to take in and absorb information, they're not the organization facet of Mercury. That's more Virgo. So Gemini moon people will be really scattered, super curious. Their attention span may not be all there. They're so interested in keeping up with the 20 things going on that it's hard for them to piece together things or actually keep details specifically about every individual event. So people are going to feel mentally scattered. They're going to feel it's a trauma signature with an eclipse, so emotionally traumatizing due to the lack of information, the lack of uncertainty, or some of the information that they're being fed. So an eclipse being a trauma signature and the moon obviously having to do with your feelings, and Gemini ruling the 3rd house of communications and information, this would be synchronistic or a signature of people feeling traumatized, emotionally traumatized by information they're being told about and fed. So this can apply to not just the United States, but it can apply to Europe and other places, especially like the World Health Organization, that is being the global mouthpiece of the hysteria. Regardless if there's deaths or not, Pandemics and plagues have happened throughout the entire human history. This is not the first. This will not be the last. The hysteria is ridiculous. People live in such small little bubbles now of safety where nothing really happens to them anymore, that they have they're sheltered to where they freak out about this. I'm not trying to trivialize the deaths. I'm not trying to trivialize this. Me specifically, studying history, astrological signatures, and especially plagues and pandemics, so that's my thing. Especially if you watch my channel. Omens, Nostradamus themed stuff, plagues, that sort of thing. Deaths, massive deaths, that's my thing. So I'm well aware. I even predicted a few years back that there was going to be a pandemic of some kind. Hello, here we are. And, the themes that I was thinking were going to happen are nowhere to the level that it is. I was picking up on the level of hysteria, not the level of actual justifiable concern. People die, diseases happen. You're just going to have to deal with it. And anyway, I'm not going to turn this into a rant thing. So, the things that people are going to be concerned about is their financial stability, the collective financial stability. So the second house rules like personal resources. The opposing house is the eighth house, is collective resources. So what you taxes, what you put into your community, Social Security, welfare, if you've been getting help or assistance or benefits, people are going to be concerned or worried about that. So there is going to be a narrative with media or whatever, the government or the mouthpieces of the government, saying that there's potential instability or concerns coming up with financial assistance. People are also going to be concerned about potential health care. I would think that primarily would subscribe to the release of the COVID-19 vaccine, which do not fucking get it. I've already done plenty of rants on that. You can do what you want, but if you ask me, do not get the vaccine. I've already gone on and on and on and on about it. Anyway, I'm not trying to derail my discussion. So disease, healthcare, collective resources, and secrets. Secrets, that's a fascinating one. So with having this eclipse in the house of secrets, there's potentially going to be some sort of information that's leaked, or information that completely contradicts something that's ongoing or whatever, and it's going to confuse people and split people down the middle, more or less. It's the Gemini duality of being confused about this or being confused about that. Speaking from the United States perspective, and I kind of touched base on my election-themed eclipse video, Trump is actually going to end up being the winner of the election. And if you look at all of, not just the media in the United States, but it's also spreading worldwide now, and there's, other foreign leaders that are congratulating Biden for his win when it hasn't even been confirmed yet. Even theoretically, if we're going to pretend for a second, he legitimately won. It's not confirmed until the 14th of December. I mean, can't blame the other countries. Our own damn citizens don't know how the Electoral College or the election procedure works, so why would we expect foreigners to know? That being said, people are going to be really shocked about that. Again, that's going to be like emotionally traumatizing information that happens. Coincidentally, the solar eclipse is happening on the 14th of December, which is the date that the Electoral College confirms and votes for the president-elect and confirms who won. So that's fascinating that coincides with that as well. So mainly people are going to just be concerned and emotionally traumatized from feeling like they lost their jobs, feeling like they lost their business, that they're not financially independent, that they're having anxiety and concern about potentially losing benefits. Try not to get into the United States thing, but of course that's really fixated on my mind because that's been ongoing. There will be politicians primarily, or this could potentially apply worldwide, but I don't know the details and I don't keep up with some of the international kind of themes, but political leaders or whoever would be parliament, all those kinds of places, presidents, whatever, chancellors, would be abusing their authority or basically putting meat on a hook in front of people and saying, hey, do you need help? Do you need help? Because the Pluto and Capricorn thing is all about power and abuse of power, and with it being conjunct with Saturn, as it has been, the theme is still going to unravel that it's authorities or government, entities abusing their power, and that also has been a 2020 theme because of the lockdowns and deciding that people can't go outside unless they get shots, and then deciding that they're going to track people, and then Bill Gates telling people that they need to get the shot. And anyway, sorry, rambling again. So anyway, that's basically what's going to be happening. Then we switch gears to Singapore or Eastern Asia. I would assume most of Asia would probably have it in the 9th house. You would be having a trauma signature with anything to do with religion, or it would be travel. Travel would be a thing. I have no idea what the latest. I mean, I'm kind of burnt out on the COVID thing, so honestly, I haven't been keeping up with it. I don't know how Asia, obviously it came from China originally, how Asia is faring out with COVID or any potential other pandemics going on. Because not only will COVID has been happening, but there's other plagues and pandemics, bird flus, all that kind of stuff that will manifest because we're in a huge generational signature of just plagues or pandemics. It doesn't have to be just COVID, which influenza is going to kill way more people this year, 2020 to 2021, than COVID will. Sorry. So, with the lunar eclipse in Gemini being in the 9th house, information from foreign sources is going to be potentially traumatizing. It could be something to do with there being a limited access to foreign information. Foreign information might be wrong. It would have to do with travel, religion, law. There might be some things going on in certain Asia countries. I know Hong Kong has still been fighting, pretty much like their version of the Revolutionary War or the French Revolution kind of thing. To be honest, my geography's... No, hold on. I have a map right here. Don't be stupid. Yeah, I mean... I'm going to be such an airhead right now. Is Singapore near China? Or near Hong Kong? Singapore. Right there. Hong Kong. Yes, they are very close. Okay, good. I at least checked before I decided to make an assumption and an ass out of myself. So, with the trauma signature for the moon in Gemini and information going on in the 9th house, that would relate to there being some sort of limitation or some sort of problem with information from foreign sources, and law. Law would be primarily how that would manifest on a mundane level. It could be religion, but I would say more law. So, again, with the Pluto-Saturn conjunction throughout this year, there's been an abuse of power and that sort of thing. We just had Neptune retrograde for its significant amount of time. It went direct. Did it go direct, or is it going direct soon? It went direct 1.3 days ago. So when Neptune is retrograde, that's when kind of secrets are revealed or conspiracies come out of the woodworks. So that's kind of what's been going on. At least that would happen worldwide. For the past, I think it's like six months or so. That's actually Pluto. But anyway, for a significant amount of time, Neptune goes retrograde and then direct. So with Neptune going direct, the veil is now put over, or the wool's put over our eyes yet again, and people are going to be fed bullshit and all that jazz. And a lot of the trauma signature with the moon being in Gemini is people are going to feel divided, split, or having cognitive dissonance with the information they're being fed. It's when you have cognitive dissonance, especially a severe case of it, it can trigger like psychosis, psychotic behavior. Yeah, you can look more into cognitive dissonance. I'm not going to make this a psychology rant, but that can lead people to acting really erratic and abnormal and unstable, which will just contribute more to the dissolving destruction of the structures. And Pluto also having to do with the psyche and your behavior as well. People are kind of feeling like they're losing their shit. they're losing their shit. Like, people are losing their shit more than ever, and it's harder for even the people that usually are pretty level-headed or realistic to keep their focus straight and to not be influenced by all the instability and chaotic forces going on around them. Okay, so let's see if I can jump to the solar eclipse now. I know I said I'm going to try not to ramble or like derail my conversation, but I think I say that stuff because I subconsciously know I'm going to do it. As I was sitting there staring at the charts, I got to do it. I just got to get it out of my system. Sorry. I'm blaming it on the eclipse. I even looked at the current chart to see like why the fuck this is a thing. Then I thought about it. Gemini, the eclipse being in the 8th house of secrets. I'm all about secrets. And I was referencing Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which has to do with the government or leaders and authority, that sort of thing. Made me think while I was staring at the Neptune signature. 5 years ago I did a really crappy video on Neptune and Pisces, the general themes. One of the themes that I highlighted was there was going to be globalism. Globalism and socialism, the one world government kind of thing. I know I'm way ahead of Saturn being in Aquarius for, conspiracies, but I just gotta get this out of my system, and I see it in the chart. I was just sitting here staring at it, and I was like, don't do it, don't do it. I'm like, I gotta do it. So, I said I was gonna go into the nodes. The nodes are in Gemini and Sagittarius, even though it's not conjunct. Could be an orb conjunction if you... No, that's like 20 degrees. Anyway, so it's still in the same sign. In medieval astrology, that's all that matters. When we're looking at the nodes, we see the themes with you're trying to expand your perspective and mind, you're trying to absorb information, you're trying to learn to see life from other people's point of view and kind of perfect your communication. It also has an emphasis on a tendency to be restless and scattered, and you need to focus your ability to communicate your ideas to help improve your life. When I read the improve your life part, I started looking at all the squares to the moon, the lunar eclipse. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Okay, so the hard aspects we have going on is we have a square to the lunar eclipse to Ceres. Ceres has to do with agriculture, nurturing yourself, healing, so it has to do with food. So with there being this being the house of security and resources and then being square to Ceres would insinuate food shortages are obviously either a repercussion of the events, or looking at the other aspects to Ceres, we see a sextile to Black Moon Lilith and Taurus, which is all about greed and gluttony and people refusing to change their ways. We also see a trine to Hades and the Midhaven in Cancer, and Hades is pretty much the sinister signature, like evil kind of stuff. If you were gonna think of trying to think of an unbiased example, but George Soros, the majority, at least people I discuss with, viewed George Soros as kind of like an antichrist, or Hitler. Or we can go with Hitler. A lot of people can agree on that. Would be the embodiment of what Hades is. It's something evil or something that has malicious intents and sinister motives. So with us having a trine from Ceres to that Hades signature, and the Cancer archetype being associated with the home or the country or whatever, this little aspect lines going on with the moon eclipse to Ceres, and then Ceres in a positive aspect to Hades, would insinuate that the hysteria that's being caused by COVID, the shutdown, the regulations, the control, would be intentional. That's not something that I've, just stumbled upon. There's other people who have those speculations. Even people seeing it doesn't make any sense why all this is going on like this. It is some sort of attempt to contain or control the world on like a global level, because globalism and socialism would be the same thing. Also, when we have, I think it's when Neptune is in Pisces, it's Neptune in Pisces, that's when we have historically throughout history trends in socialism, and socialism rising. Cultural Marxism is going to be the modern socialism kind of movement that's been going on. you don't know what cultural Marxism is, oh, you're in for a treat. Read 1984 and read up on cultural Marxism, and that Gemini moon eclipse will definitely be traumatizing you with the information you find. But anyway, so what else do I feel like I need to get out here? Oh yeah, so the nodes being associated with being scattered, trying to absorb information, and make appropriate logical decisions for yourself. We have a square to Neptune. So I just said that Neptune went direct just the other day. So when Neptune is direct, the veil is over our eyes. For the eclipse chart, we have Neptune in the 6th house, which is the Virgo house, associated with discernment, day-to-day activities, routines, that sort of thing. So the Neptune being there would be people being unaware of how their day-to-day routine is being altered or sabotaged, and they would just see that there's some sort of instability or lack of just knowing what's going to happen next. And squaring the nodes with this eclipse being in Gemini and the other aspects again with Neptune, we have a stellium of Scorpio right there, which is controlling. Hello, Venus, Juno, Astrea, Mercury. Mercury has to do with communications. That they're trying to control the narrative, they're trying to control the information, to confuse people and to change their daily lives. That is the overall theme and motive with this. When we look at, let's see, Black Moon Lilith aspects. So we have I already said the sextile series. We have a trine to trans Pluto with the Black Moon Lilith aspect. So that means that the sinister motives, because Black Moon Lilith and Hades can be kind of interchangeable when it comes to malicious intent. With it trying to trans Pluto in the 11th house of sociological institutions, organizations, society in general, that sort of thing, they are somehow successfully or being enabled to transform society. So this kind of goes back to Pluto being in Capricorn. If you look at Pluto in Capricorn historically, it's associated with tyrannical governments, overstepping authority, abuse of power. French Revolution happened, the American Revolution happened then. Look in Hong Kong right now, what they're going through. It's the general themes. So on this level, with Neptune being in Pisces while this signature is going on with Pluto and Capricorn, it's a global effort to basically contain and be a tyrannical one world kind of oversight, which, making this global pandemic and with the World Health Organization, and then with Bill Gates also trying to encourage people to be tracked on their phones and to be documented if they've gotten their shots or not, or they can't come out of their house. That sounds like, when people have been making comments about 1984 and the Orwellian sort of things going on, that is definitely going on. That will be a continuation going on. In the United States, as much as he's trying to, when Trump gets reelected, he'll continue to fight against that. I think Trump is a little blindsided himself with like the CDC and all that. I don't think he realizes that the deep state has also infiltrated all those organizations as well, because of Big Pharma and all that. And I've been almost really, when I see him talk about on those COVID task force things, how he's just saying the vaccine's coming out, and I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to be an anti-vax person, but look into this, look at the statistics, look at all this. And I was like, you're just eating up what the CDC's saying, and they're just another facet of the deep state, and oh my god. So anyway, so hopefully when Saturn goes into Aquarius, that is a rebelling, defiant archetype with Aquarius. Hopefully that will be collectively people revolting. Saturn ruling the government and authorities would be a trauma signature on people, or there being some sort of defiance in general between the government bodies and the citizens worldwide. Yeah, so I just had to get that out. I wasn't trying to go total conspiracy nut, but just when I'm looking at aspects sometimes, certain events and certain things just click, and I'm just like, wow, that's evident. So 2020 was staged. 2020 was planned. Even if you go back to the origin of where the virus came from, there was, indiscrepancies with when it manifested, how it spread. There's indiscrepancies with deaths, the amount of deaths, with the people documented as dying from it, at least in the United States. I think more people were included in China and like Hong Kong as dying from it, but they were actually killed because of the, their Pluto-Saturn and tyrannical revolution going on over there. Yeah, and just all across the board, there might be just a few people who are in charge that are trying to take control of the entire world, which is plausible, and I've also heard arguments about that. I don't really look into that kind of thing. I mean, I could, but I mean, that would just be depressing if I just confirmed that, and that would just make me feel down. So I haven't, but I can believe it. And it would be a couple people ruling the world, primarily people who are the highest donors to the World Health Organization, come to mind, would be the ones that are just trying to create one system so they can control everything. And speaking of which, when we look at synchronistic historical events, Uranus being in Taurus, I've talked about this. Uranus and Taurus is associated with the Great Depression in the United States. I've done, investigative charts on the original stock market crash in the 1930s, and specifically the motive for the reason why, and it sounds really silly that I say that, there was an ulterior motive for the stock market crash. That was when the industrial complex was happening, the big boom with General Electric creating refrigerators and radios and TVs. I know it wasn't in the 30s, but that's when it started, the technology started to develop, and the automobiles and all that. When there could be just the average Joe person who happened to be ingenious and make a vehicle motor, and then he would be the next Bill Gates, essentially. Instead of giving him that opportunity to do that, if they crippled the economy, crashed the stock market, made everybody dependent on welfare, then there wouldn't be anybody but the big corporations or the big businesses to then take over the reins on any kind of innovation, markets, supply and demand, that sort of thing. That same phenomenon is happening now with Uranus being in Taurus. The difference is now is it has to do with controlling the World Wide Web. Neptune and Pisces is associated with the World Wide Web as well. So as people are learning to be economically independent, have their own businesses, be entrepreneurs, be online. For example, the videos that I do, and I have services that I've launched as a result of my following here. There is a conscious effort to stop the freedom and the ability for people to flourish, just like they did in the Industrial Revolution. So when little average Joe made instead of an icebox, made a refrigerator, and then they crashed the economy, he wasn't able to get the funds for a patent or to start doing mass production of refrigerators. So General Electric came along, gave him a little sum of money to help him in his time of need, and they took over the business, and that's why General Electric owns a lot of stuff, including the power, electricity and all that throughout the entire continental United States. But anyway, so the instability going on, the draconian measures being locked down, trying to limit people's resources, or just, capitalism in general, having choices with food, makes me think back to that aspect between the eclipse in Gemini to Ceres. There being a limitation or people being traumatized by knowing that they have a select few of things, food-wise, supply-wise, that sort of thing. People are worried that they don't have enough money. People are worried that when they do have enough money that there's not enough stuff that they need, and that they have to, go without. And that's the kind of thing that's going on. There's a global effort to cripple everyone, to make them feel hopeless, helpless, and then make them dependent upon the powerful. So they give you little allowances, and then keep you, being mindless drones and watching your Netflix, and you can't be free, you can't be innovative, you can't excel, be the next Bill Gates, which you don't want to be Bill Gates anyway, but I'm talking about success-wise, not, conspiracy and, eugenics mass murdering wise. Anyway, uh, it's the lunar eclipse is just really making me ramble about crazy ass shit. Real shit, but crazy ass shit. I'll sound like tinfoil hat to some people, but that's right. Followers for my Facebook and my YouTube. This will be on my YouTube. That's what I meant. Know how I am and know that what I say is true, even if it sounds really crazy. And for 2020, it's been really crazy. And that if anybody wants to know why this is all happening, that's why it's all happening. I kind of pieced this together prior. I saw other signs of this, but as I was just looking at this chart, it just clicked for me. So that'll be a continuation of that, and basically what's going to happen is worldwide, people are going to have to stand up to their governments and say fuck you. Unfortunately for Europe and all the places like Australia and all that don't have firearms, good luck with that, because historically the way that I've seen that, you know, we take charge over here is we have firearms. So which is the reason why the deep state and the corporate deep state or whatever career politicians are trying to impose gun control legislation, pushing the hysteria with mass shootings, staging mass shootings, depending on how far you want to go there, or allowing mass shootings to happen in gun-free zones, knowing that they were going to happen, or getting, you know, some sort of tips or heads up about they would happen, but they just looked the other way and let them happen so they could use them as false flags to justify gun legislation. Yeah, because the United States specifically is going to be the only one that has a chance to, you know, stand up to the government, because everywhere else where you can't defend yourself on a citizen level, you're going to be like the people in Hong Kong that were just labeled as COVID deaths, and a lot of them likely didn't die from that. Or they intentionally shorted stuff in the hospitals, which I totally think is plausible, and I saw that too when I did some videos on that earlier this year, about how they intentionally shorted some of the hospitals with supplies that would potentially save people, so more people would die, so they could just get rid of more people. Yeah. And then also the leaked videos on Instagram, Corona leaks or whatever, where there were police in medical gear going to individual dwellings with you know, big assault rifles. Why on earth would, when there's a plague going on, would they have to go in with multiple men with all these rifles, unless they were just gonna go execute people? But anyway, wow, I feel like I'm super being like conspiracy status. Time out. Okay, if I just stop and start the video again, cut myself off, maybe I'll refocus. So let's go into the solar eclipse for the 14th of December. So solar eclipses are localized to specific areas. So you can look at it as a general theme, but let me zoom out of my, where can I zoom out of my map? Oh my gosh, redraw. I don't use this enough. Map. World view. There we go. So you can, like, on a spiritual level, like a mental level. Oh god. Go back. What did I just do? There we go. But primarily when you're looking at mundane events and all that, you have to look at the geographical area of this. I'll insert this chart, this image right here. So this solar eclipse will start off in the Pacific Ocean, a little bit south of Hawaii. You can follow the actual direction line, and that's going to be the direct hit areas, or the areas that's most impacted by the themes, but it does pulsate out, meaning I kind of go up like the equivalent of maybe an inch or two up north and south of a solar eclipse line. So specifically, it's going to be starting in the Pacific Ocean, south of Hawaii, and it's going to dip down into South America. It's going to go straight through Argentina, Chile, and it's going to go into the Atlantic Ocean, and it's going to go across and almost touch the continent of Africa. So, in general, Sagittarius has to do with, like, the Ring of Fire, for example. I think the start of this eclipse will be touching the platelet for the Ring of Fire that goes around the Pacific Ocean. When there's volatility in the Ring of Fire, that would lead to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, that kind of thing that can happen in Mexico, the west coast of the United States, earthquake tremors in Alaska. That could be significant earthquakes. The Cascadia Fault Slip, I've still been waiting for that to happen. That's the fault that goes through the Pacific Northwest of the United States and goes through the middle of California. And if it were to split significantly enough, it would take half of California with it, which not a huge loss there, in my opinion. Sorry anybody in California. Anyway, the Ring of Fire also extends to Japan, parts of Asia, Papua New Guinea. Those particular islands and stuff like that are very significantly influenced by any kind of unstable kind of activity with the Ring of Fire. Australia as well, that sort of thing. So earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, that sort of any fault splitting along the Ring of Fire will potentially happen. Earthquakes, tsunamis, COVID plagues. Wait. We're going into winter in my hemisphere, so that means that Argentina is going to be in summer. So it could be a heat wave, it could be droughts, could be famine going on again with the series aspects. It could be political unrest again because of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. That kind of generational themes will still play out even when Saturn goes into Aquarius. And pretty much like the South American continent, even up to, you can even round it up to Venezuela, which Venezuela's obviously had a serious socialist problem that's really getting bad, more and more so every day. That could potentially get even worse. It could be draconian measures going on in South America. I have a friend that I think lives in Brazil. I have to ask him about how things are going on down there. With the eclipse line going through part of the Atlantic Ocean, I know hurricanes kind of manifest up towards northern Africa and going towards the continental United States, but any kind of volatile weather or anything like that might be, related to hurricanes or something of that nature. Again, if there's earthquakes or that kind of thing going on, it could be tsunamis happening, that sort of thing. Also, it being close to Africa could be famine. The eclipse ends specifically towards South Africa. So there's been a lot of government bullshit going on in South Africa as well. The government leaders saying that they should kill all white people and take their land away, and just genocide and mass murder and all that kind of thing. The chaos, the riots, the potential civil wars, the mass murder, and the unjustifiable tyrannical kind of themes is just like a generalization with Pluto being in Capricorn. So while Pluto is in Capricorn and there's eclipses, all those kind of apply to mundane or sociological kind of trends. For a generalized theme, everybody else, because it's supposed to be localized to that area, Sagittarius eclipse would have to do with there being some sort of trauma with traveling, there being some sort of trauma with some sort of foreign interference, places that are foreign to you, law, religion, higher knowledge, that sort of thing. People manipulating facts, information, again, going into manipulating the narrative or the information that is accessible to people, like on the World Wide Web would be a great example of that. And when we look at the chart itself for the solar eclipse, we have the moon in the 12th house of conspiracies. Well, at least for Washington, D.C. Let's see, hold on. Let me, just to be sure. 12th house again. What a shocker. A conspiracy? Oh my god, I can't even name a town in Brazil. My friend's gonna be all like, you're terrible! Capital of Brazil.
Brasilia is the capital of Brazil.
Okay. I just want to get an idea of... Okay. In Brazil, which would be South America, the moon is actually in the 11th house. Now I need to experiment here. Let's try London, UK. 12th house again. Okay. Let's try Sydney. Australia. Oh, and Sydney, Australia's in the 10th house. Okay. So, expansion, over-exaggeration, law, religion, order, foreign information, foreign influences, that sort of thing would be the themes of a moon in Sagittarius when we're talking about an eclipse. For Australia, being in the 10th house would be something to do with there being some sort of trauma signature with law and justice, having to do with the government. Then we look at, for Brazil, or the general area would be South America, we have the solar eclipse happening in the 11th house, and that's also conjunct with Mercury at the moment, and it's conjunct the South Node, so there's going to be some sort of repeat of past mistakes or past habits that will be happening communication-wise. That has to do with organizations, sociological institutions, and also the 11th house rules the internet and World Wide Web, that sort of thing. So there might be some sort of a censorship going on, primarily in Brazil or in that area. That would be how that would translate. Then we look at the West Coast, the East Coast of the United States. We have the moon in Sagittarius, the solar eclipse happening in the 12th house of conspiracies. And Pluto's in the 8th house of self-secrets. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying before, that there's some sort of conspiracy to manipulate laws, manipulate government, or information in general. Yeah, just like Sagittarius and Gemini being associated with information, knowledge, and absorption of information, and both these eclipses being in those signs would cause instability, confusion, cognitive dissonance with the conflicting information that would be provided. And with all of the charts, either the moon being in the 10th house, or not the moon, the solar eclipse being in the 10th house, the 11th house, or the 12th house, would be conspiracies, some sort of motives to manipulate information for the community, or particularly an abuse of power with government or authorities, which would be the 10th house. So even though the solar eclipse is located in 3 different houses, those 3 houses correlate with the themes, with other aspects going on, with some of the major transits that have happened throughout this year, and it also coincides with the Gemini lunar eclipse that's happening today. Maybe I was avoiding doing these because this makes me disappointed. I already know things are horrible, but when I sit there and pick it apart and validate it, and I'm like, yeah, it's just as bad as I thought. I just hope that everybody wakes up. The best thing that can come from me making this video is that people see it and understand where I'm coming from, research as much as they can for themselves, trust their gut, and stand up for what's right, and fight for your lives and your freedom, because Your freedom should be your God-given right. That's why we have free will. And it's not supposed to be controlled by anyone but ourselves. And when we give up our freedom and we give up our ability to be independent, choose our own paths, choose our own, directions in life, we fail ourselves on a soul growth and development level. Because we're all here to live individual lives with individual circumstances. And if we're all molded to be cookie cutter cutouts and have to copy each other, monkey see, monkey do, and you don't actually follow what you're supposed to be doing, all people are going to turn into is just hollow, empty shells of nothingness. And they're not going to feel fulfilled. They're going to just get sick, have diseases, wither away, have emotional, mental problems, and they're not doing anything for themselves. Very unfortunate. So, be a rebel. Embody that Aquarius Saturn energy that's going to be happening into next year. Or the defiance and combativeness with Mars being in Aries. Don't give in. Do your research. Think for yourself. Don't be afraid to be an independent person and be who you should be. And don't give in to the globalism and socialism shit. Good luck, guys.